Let's make this next 1 hour, 60 minutes, kind of a different way to understand certain things. Okay, let me set the objective for this session. Definitely, this session is not going to be like an educatory session. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what is the difference between WTO and WCAT, when it is formed, what is WCO. That is not my intention. I'm sure all of you at a different point of time in the college that you have studied enough about all this background and historical thing. My whole focus is going to be today. Lawyers, professionals, chartered accountants, and other practitioners, they are thriving for opportunities. India is a land of opportunity, land of opportunity. We have two sets of people. One who have determined, I will never read. I will never get into a disciplined culture. I will hear, I will watch, I will go and search when I need. Another side, they do a systematic reading, they do a systematic way to educate their knowledge, they have a study group, and they indulge in some kind of practice, and that's how they find their interest and they come out. Now, we as a country moving into consulting, litigation, and every aspiring lawyers have one goal that I need to be a very big litigator. And on the course of litigation, during my tenure with LNS attorneys Lakshmi Kumar and Sridharan, I have seen the bright minds of the country. There are people, they said, no, we are not for litigation. We prefer to do consulting for clients. We don't want to go and stand in the courts. So when you go and talk to the market that I'm a lawyer, the people around us, they perceive you as the people around the courts, the criminal lawyers, whatever that they are seeing in the movies. That's all they have a perspective about lawyers. But I can see the more opportunities are available for this community, the emerging buds. No one else in this country will have an exposure like a lawyer, and you will be respected for your veracity of knowledge which you gain over the period of time. So every lawyer who comes and they become an associate, when they do internship, they all have a self goal. They all think, okay, this is what the practice is, what a stream that I need to choose. I have spoken to scores of lawyers, okay, be it from the tier one, tier two, and almost. No one ever said that I would like to become a customs lawyer. Everyone said, I want to become a corporate lawyer, I want to become a GC, I want to be here, I want to become judiciary, and all those things. But no one ever said to me that I prefer to be a customs lawyer. Very few handpicked people. But the opportunity in customs is enormous. The learnings, what you do in customs is enormous. Okay, we learned something. Are we limiting our learnings only to a territorial geographical area like India? No. This one product, this one subject, customs, will take you globally. It's one language across the globe, which means imagine opportunities are enormous. So today we are going to see what are the fundamentals of customs, in which customs stands, the core principles, the areas of interest, and what are the things are emerging across the world, and how as a lawyer community or a professionals or chartered accountants that you can seize these untold opportunities. Believe me, you would not have heard such an opportunity being spoken in a public place like this. Even if you happen to work with the senior, even he will never divulge these informations to you. I am going to open up to you. So hear me closely. Wherever there is theory, probably don't pay more attention. Okay, that's only for information. I'm sure you can pick it up from internet and you can read some books and you can get it, but don't miss the core. So this is what I wanted to set it up. So with this pretext, we'll just move in. So today we are going to just see an overview customs. So we are in customs. All of you know customs, Indian customs, CBIC. But how this WCO it emerges in 1952, the CCC, Cooperation Council, Customs Cooperation Council, an independent intergovernmental body, and they came out with a kind of study group in Brussels. So this study group were given a task to examine the GATT contract, the member parties, those period, the contracting parties of few 17 countries. So they gathered and they studied, which is known as European Economic Cooperation, ECUSG, European Customs Union Study Group. So they would like to examine the economic and technical issues from GATT. So this group gathered a few times and they come out with a recommendation. That's how the establishment on January 26, 1953, the Triple C was inaugurated formally. Okay. Ever since the GATT was going on 1994, okay, some of you may wanted to know what is GATT. GATT was an ad hoc, it's a provisional gathering. WTO it's an agreement and it is permanent. So that's a major difference between GATT and WTO that you should have some basic understanding about it. WTO has a strong legal basis because members have ratified it. We will see one agreement as to how that members have ratified it and how it becomes functional. And they normally they used to say GATT, they will have contracting parties, but WTO has members. So in 1994, the transition took place, all of you may be knowing. So now we don't call GATT, it coexists, but still we say WTO. All right, okay. So how this WTO handles, there are three great pillars in customs globally. Okay. The pillar number one is HSN. Pillar number two is valuation, and pillar number three is rules of origin. So if anyone wants to excel in customs, you should have some understanding on these three subjects. Rest of the things are procedural, which you can anyway acquire it over the period of time from different geographical area. So procedure are also getting simplified and standardized through TFA, which we will be seeing a little later. So HSN is a very, very important aspect for any customs lawyer or a practitioner to have a basic understanding. Okay, so now how HSN is so important? Even if you see in GST, HSN is included. Customs HSN and customs valuation has been incorporated into our Indian GST system as well. Okay, so now is it so hard for someone to understand HSN? The first pillar of HSN, how do we understand? So though we are not going to talk about the objectives of GATT, how GATT formed, all the historic information which I said in the beginning, I would like to directly move into the topics. Okay, so in the topics, HSN plays a very vital role. Anyone who thinks that I can also do a better classification, of course, everybody can do it. When you go into a hotel, when you want to find a particular product, what will you do? You go to the yellow pages and you open it and you find out where is this. You go to the page number and you find out. Exactly, we have a tariff book. That HSN will also give you the same guidance. It has an index page. Whenever you want to classify a product, it is very easy. So in this country, the most predominantly known people called customs brokers, they use tariff. Importers and exporters, they use tariff. When these communities can able to identify classifications through their own skills, where is the question of litigation coming in? The large number of litigations in this country prevails around classification, even 2020, 21 as well. The latest disturbances are happening around classification. So how classification is so important in India as well as global. Now, think it is not a knowledge session, it is an opportunity session. So see, put the lens of opportunity and see from that perspective, so you will not miss anything. If you come from a knowledge perspective, then probably you will be divulged into the knowledge and probably you'll miss the objective of this session. All right. Now, as a lawyer, I'm assuming that all the people who are participating here are professionals and lawyers, and I'm talking to you from that perspective only, not to impart knowledge about HSN to you. Okay. Now, HSN is so simple according to the world. You talk to a custom broker, he will say, I have spent 40 years in this trade. I have classified scores of bills of entry. HSN is never a problem. Classification is a cakewalk for me. You go and talk to a customs officer. They will say, I know what I have to do. I have studied in NASN and they taught me the fundamental principles of classification. And I have been assessing thousands of bill of entry every day, and I know what I am doing. Now, if the customs officer knows what he is doing And the importers says that I know I've been importing 20 years, 30 years, and we know what we are doing, and we have been consulting with the global big fours, and we are having expert committees within our organization. So where is the gap and where are the opportunities for the lawyers? Ladies and gentlemen, I will just try to give you some information. The whole big bound customs tariff is divided into 21 sections, which is about some 97 chapters. 98 chapters, they will say they have reserved one for future use. That is chapter 77. It has 1,222 headings and 5,387 subheadings. When I say heading, is it of 4 digit, chapter is of 2 digits, and subheadings of 6 digits. India have 8 digits classification that we have in our tariff. Now, these tariff, you can't directly open a page. You want to import an engine, you cannot directly go to an engine classification and say, this is what I put, this is what the duty I will pay. There are some principles. How do we understand this tariff and how do we use, what are the aids that we use? So we have headings, subheadings, section notes, chapter notes, interpretative rules, and HSN explanatory notes issued by WCO, which has persuasive value according to Supreme Court. Now, one thing, if you see a big ship, we have a small part which controls the entire ship, right? All of you can understand. We are a 6 feet people, so but our tongue controls everything. Our whole body can be destroyed or it can be built because of our tongue. The entire bound book can be managed with one page, which contains 6 rules. If any lawyer in this group can master the 6 rules, I'm telling you, you are the master of HSN. Now, you can go to Google and type rules for interpretation, rule or GIR, general interpretative rules, HSN. You will see one page. I am flashing one page for your, just in case if you're not able to access computer, I'm just flashing this one page rule. You will not be able to read it. It's just so cluttering here, but I tried to compress it to show you how a general rules for interpretation looks for you. This 6 rules, what you see, the cluttered information over here. If you take serial number 1, which I'll show it in the next slide, this is rule number 1. Lawyers, you are able to understand. You've been trained. Now, I'm going to ask you to come out boldly and kindly explain me what this few lines talks about. In the tariff, it's only 3 lines. I have enlarged it, so it looks like 6 lines. So all of you just please read. I have told you that it has sections, chapter notes, sub-chapters. This simple rule number 1, could you please read it? I'll give you 10 seconds. All right, you must have read it. You are quick to comprehend, so you would have been understanding what I have flashed on the screen. Rule 1. Can anyone in the audience please unmute? You can raise your hand and tell me what this rule 1 talks about. Anyone?
Hello, good evening, sir. Thank
Good
you for the
evening.
session. So basically, the rule says that the serial number, whereas the section, chapters, and sub-chapters are being provided, that is for the reference of the user, that is referring to the rules.
Okay.
They have nothing to do with basically what we call it as a serial number wise or something like that in the statute which is being formed by the legislature. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, I will give you some perspective because we have to cover a lot of sections, otherwise we'll be interacting like this. For legal purpose, as this gentleman rightly said, heading, reference, section notes, chapter notes, sub-chapter notes, or subheading notes, and any other directive or conclusive notes which is there, everything is given for legal purpose, no doubt about it. I have requested you to read and tell me what it says. What it says very clearly, if you find direction elsewhere, don't come here. That's a basic rule number 1. The whole world doesn't understand. A person who works in this industry for 40 years, recently, just 2 months back, he's a owner of a company and he says, I am doing this 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. I just asked him, have you heard about rules for interpretation? He says, no. Where is it? Where can I buy that book? I said, it is there in the same book. It's only 1 page. Haven't you come across? He says, no. Okay, please open this. So he is there and rule GIR. I have just requested him to read this rule number 1 and to tell me what it says. He is giving a lecture on that, but he's not coming to the point. Why I'm referring this, please put a lens of opportunity. You as lawyers can understand and you can see what it returned in between. Today, the firm in which that I worked called Lakshmi Fund were handling this country's 60 to 70% of litigations on classifications, valuations are with this one law firm. Why? They have understood what it is written there. Today, so many customs officers, WCO, whenever the HS committee gives direction, they invoke JAR. What it says, a simple 6 rules, people are not able to comprehend. The whole world is going for a toss. Everyone interprets on their own way. So there is an opportunity for lawyers. The guidance given very clearly, how should you interpret the customs tariff? You cannot do it on your own understanding. So there are, if you, when you go to rule 2A, when we do a session tomorrow on classification per se, I can take you through. So this is not a session for deep diving. We are reaching further to understand the macro view on opportunities. So if this is how the opportunities are emerging, today from new tariff is going to come from January. Every year, how this tariff operates. Now, you file something known as bill of entry, or you present it under self-assessment as section 72, section 17, you file a bill of entry, and every importer will be doing that. And your assessment will be reviewed automatically by a system called RMS. If it approves, it will get through and you can pay duty and you can clear it. If it doesn't approve, it will go to the officer who will look into it and he will reassess or he will ask questions from you to understand. Everyone will give a response at that point of time. If the officer is not satisfied with your response, because if you are re-engineering the classification or if you are trying to misclassify, he might even reprimand you by invoking penal provisions. So if you are bona fide, you can get through. If you are malified, probably you will be hit on this decision. Now, when that hit happens, there is a speaking order given by the officer why he did like that. With that speaking order, you can take it and you can go for an appeal. There comes an opportunity for appeal. This is what a traditional lawyer community understands. So if you are trying to follow this footprint, please remember that's not going to work in the future. Why do I say that? Because this country is not interested in litigating matters. Because if you see the current scenario of process, all of you would have understood, at least from customs point of view, it goes to commissioner appeals. It goes from commissioner appeals to tribunal, tribunal to Supreme Court. Now, when the journey starts, it's just merely 7 years to 10 years of journey. Nobody would like to wait for such a long time. So there is a mechanism which I'm going to talk to you about it, an alternative way as to how this can be mitigated. So on the classification, it's an art. There are chemical engineers, there are IPR engineers, there are scientists. They come inside and they try to understand the product and they try to classify. But mere technical knowledge alone will not help. A technical knowledge read with a legal interpretation is mandatory for someone to do a right classification. Okay, where do we look up? Okay, in India, I don't have jurisprudence. So where do I look up? You can go to European Union. There are ample of methodologies that are available. US cross rulings, Australia, a lot of areas where we can look up and we can identify how they are doing classification. So in the area of classification for importers in India, for customs purpose, for GST purpose, classification are inevitable. So please make a note of it. First opportunity for you is classification. The second opportunity, the second pillar, global pillar, customs stands on is valuation. Without valuation, the moment I say valuation, customs valuation, it came from GATT Article 7. So how the fundamental of deemed value concept or BDV concepts changed into transaction value concept currently since 2007. So these are all theories which we are not going to talk about in detail on valuation. But opportunities, how it exists. Anyone who presents a bill of entry before customs, his value to be approved. Okay, it should be a transaction value. Customs officer, how it works for people who are familiar with valuation, it's okay. For the people who are not familiar with valuation, I'll take 5 minutes and I'll explain you. So you will understand the whole gamut of valuation. Now, if you wanted to levy a percentage of duty on a product, you wanted to make sure that you are not levying the duty on a value which is under declared, correct? So if it's supposed to be, if you're importing an iPhone which is being sold in the market, let's take 50,000 rupees. When you import the cost of an iPhone for a particular X model, let's say 15,000 rupees. So they add other charges. Let's talk about 30% logistics cost and their profit margin 10%. And it comes to the market at 50,000 rupees. When they import, it will be around, the landed cost would be around 25,000. I have no problem in accepting anyone who is presenting a value as a transaction value under Rule 3. But having a related party transaction, if it comes in, probably customs wanted to verify certain things based on certain principles. What are those principles? They would like to check whether your iPhone is identical. Is there an identical imports happened before? Whether he has declared something higher than what you have declared. If that be the case, they wanted to enhance that value. So they will say, let's take a case study. I am a person, I've imported an iPhone for 20,000 rupees. And I've presented to the officer as, sir, this is a transaction value, please accept it. The officer says, there are some identical imports made by a company called PLEA. And they have declared the value as 30,000 rupees. So you have under invoiced. So I will say, no, the transaction value to be accepted, the price paid or payable is transaction value, which is to be accepted. So the officer will have to invoke the next rule because he cannot jump rules. He need to go sequentially. So he will go to the next rule called similar goods. So he will go and check, is Samsung imported the same configuration, camera, RAM, battery, all these things. And he will say, see, Samsung also imported at 28,000 rupees, but what you have declared is 20. So around 8,000 rupees is the difference which I need to increase. I have an odd choice to accept. Yes, sir, what you say is right. Please enhance. There ends the deal. If I don't accept and if I still stand on my point saying that no transaction value to be accepted, the officer goes to the next rule. What he has a choice on his hand, he will go to, there are two ways. One is deductive method. Another one is you need to construct for you to understand very easily. He can go to the market. He can go to Hirapana and he can take one iPhone. It's written there MRP 50,000 rupees. So what he will do a reverse calculation. He will say, okay, deductive method. Okay, the cost of transportation, the cost of storage, warehouse, freight forwarding, custom brokers, everything. If he starts minus reducing from that 50,000 rupees, the landed cost would be minus duty would be around 25 to 27,000 rupees. When he puts that calculation before me, I have to say, what you said is correct. Please accept, or I need to still stand on my same point saying that no, transaction value, the price paid or payable is correct value. Then he will say, he will go to the next method. So he finished the deductive method. He goes to the next method and asks for BOM, bills of material. In other words, it's not possible to go and write a mail to Apple and ask for a bills of material. What he intends to do is, he is asking, tell me what are the raw material costs? What are your labor costs? What are your packing costs? What are your other transportation costs? So he will construct one after one. Okay, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees. And then he will say, if you add up all those things, CIF comes to 28,000 rupees. But what you have declared is 20,000 rupees. So in the computed method also, if you have a choice, yes, I agree. Your calculation seems to be correct. I agree. And please go ahead and enhance the price and I will pay the duty. There ends the matter. If you still don't agree, if you still say no, the price paid or payable is transaction value, I will declare 20,000 rupees. I stand on it. Then the officer has a right under the valuation rule to reject your transaction value and to put 25,000 or 28,000 as per his own available records. So this is how the assessment is happening. Now, to conclude these 4 steps, he will take enormous time. Correct? It's not easy for you to take the decision. So the government kept a department called SVB department separately. They said, okay, you are a related party. It's take time. You give me a bond and clear the shipment. And this department will do their own investigation and they'll come out. There goes, if there are any between you, are there any agreements, like we call it as technology transfer agreements, royalty agreement? These kind of things will be verified. Now, as lawyers community, what opportunity you have? Transaction related works can be taken care by custom brokers. Consulting work can be also handled by consultants in India. But what opportunity as lawyers that you have, you can draft these agreements, because rest everything is got simplified in India. The procedures with customs also simplified. Once you get an order, it's there forever. Unless there is a change in circumstances on pricing, you don't need to notify customs. So the opportunity on valuation gone, but the opportunity in drafting these agreements, the opportunity in negotiating with them, how the post importation charges to be added or not to be added, on what value the royalty to be paid. Because today there is, because of EOI, exchange of information between transaction value and transfer pricing. The transfer pricing comes from direct tax. Transaction value for customs. For customs, always people wanted to reduce the value. In transfer pricing, they always wanted to increase the value. So how do we strike a balance? So this is opportunity number 2. So you need to understand customs valuation rules 2007. And for your interest, you can read Article 7 GATT advisory opinion and other old 1988 rules. But you can read the number of landmark judgments available in this country, and you can become an expert in customs valuation. And then you can start approaching your clients, importers, and help them in drafting these kind of an agreements with all these parameters taken into consideration. Point number 2. Point number 3, we have rules of origin. Quite interesting. Rules of origin. Anyway, I'll be showing you a couple of good, interesting slides on that. But still, I wanted to give you an overview on rules of origin. In this country, you have, okay, before I could conclude, I will just show you one screen for you, because you people can comprehend the genesis from this. This one last Indian legal framework of valuation. You can take a look at it. This is how it was, how the valuation evolved. The League of Nations, Article 7 of that, 1947. Then the European Union Study Group brought on the BDV valuation, 1953. Tokyo Round, 1979 and 81. And 1994, the Customs Valuation Agreement came in. And today we have this in India, Customs Valuation Rule 2007 is in force. Okay. So this is one thing which you can, as lawyers, you can take a screenshot or you can make a note of it. Under Article 246, Schedule 7, List 1, Entry 41 and 83 gives you the power. We had Sea Customs Act, Section 30 talks about valuation. Now under Customs Act 1962, Section 14 talks about valuation. What are the major difference? Then it was a real value method, that is wholesale price less discount. Now we have transaction value method has been adopted. So this is one basic understanding you can have it about valuation. All right. The climate is changing. Now you have free trade agreements. Now anyone who talks about free trade agreements, okay, everyone will talk about free trade agreement. How it all starts? It starts with basically you and me wanted to have some kind of a understanding. You all know about MFN concept and national concepts, everything in GATT. Initially I said, now if we talk about how this MFN, how this concepts are being there, that you can read it from your college, read it from your textbooks. Now this third pillar called rules of origin. How this rules of origin is an opportunity for lawyers. You see, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement between two countries can have, because there is an exception given in MFN. All of you may be knowing what is MFN. That MFN doesn't restrict free trade agreements. Now, comprehensive economic cooperation agreements can evolve into a partnership agreement, which we call it a CEPA. So CEPA moved to emerge to CEPA. Once you have a CEPA, comprehensive economic partnership agreement, more than from a cooperation to partnership, you can move to the next level called preferential trade agreement, PTA. And finally, you move to free trade agreements. So this is how it evolves technically. So what it says, basically, India has so many agreements. All around the world, there are 301 plus the few new additions which have also come. So FTAs are phenomenal. If you see the globalization concept which emerged in the early 90s is slowly diminishing. Now the protectionism is coming ever since Trump has come. Every countries are thinking that even RCEP was a failure. We are having ASEAN agreements. We are having SAFTA. We have SAARC. So there are regional trade agreements are in place. Now, around the world, if you see, this is something emerging, 18, 19, these are the major agreements people are negotiating. Now, the highlight on this agreement, on Vietnam agreement recently, they have even agreed with European Union, eliminating 99% of tariff. And 65 will come in the date of enforcement and 35 will go gradually in 10 years. So this will give you some idea on the African continent, the largest free trade, the largest signatories, 52 signatories out of 55 member states. This 3.4 trillion US dollar agreements is something which you need to look into it. Now, all these global agreements of FTAs, whatever that I'm talking about, working on one principle. What is it? I will allow you to import, assume that India and Sri Lanka have an agreement. I am telling Sri Lanka, you may supply goods to me with a minimum value addition of 35% in your country. That's all. How do I monitor it? The government in Sri Lanka nominating an agency, like what we call it as Chamber of Commerce in India, maybe Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka will give you that nomination. They will issue a certificate of origin. What it talks about, I have procured some goods or I have originated some goods. So non-originating goods, originating goods. The criteria is I cut some trees, I did some work, which means I used a carpenter to cut the wood log, and I created a table and chair. So there is enormous value addition and gone. The tree logs were classified under a different chapter, and the table articles, the finished articles, classified in a different chapter. So there is a tariff shift taking place. So what government of India wants, because of the agreement, if everyone is paying 10% duty, I will give you 5% preferential rate of duty. Fine. Subject to you achieve a value addition criteria. And that has been certified by the Chamber of Commerce. So usually this kind of a Chamber of Commerce giving certificates. What happens, how the lawyer's opportunity available in the third pillar needs to be seen. I don't want to name a product or a country because it's a public forum. A particular country exporting certain goods into India under the free trade agreement, and Indian customs are obligated to reciprocate the preferential duty benefits. But there is an intelligence agency in our country found out that that particular country's total producing capacity of that particular product is, let's talk about 4,000 metric tons in a year. But the imports came into our country exceeds 10,000 metric tons. Can you imagine? That country's capacity itself restricted to 4,000 metric tons. They cannot produce more than that. That certificate of origin from that country says, these are all originated from our country. Value addition achieved this much. Government of India cannot say no to this certificate because we are obligated to fulfill. They raised flags. Matter went to different authorities. Finally, they could not stop it. They know it has been smuggled from another country, routed through this country. And such a things are happening. Recently, you would have read it in the newspaper. There is a company called Future Group. The CFO of the company got arrested because there is public news coming in naming it. And what they do, Singapore, Dubai, they send the garments. They bring everything through Thailand and Bangladesh, use the SAFTA agreement. And when it comes through a landlocked route, and it was detected by customs, and they found out it is all smuggled, and they imposed fine penalty. All right. So there are a lot of opportunities for lawyers available now. It wasn't there existing earlier in India. Globally, I will show you in a different slide. In India, there are a lot of, how you say, recently, last year, customs has introduced Carota regulation. This Carota regulation, they say, irrespective of any such agreement, my country rule is that supplier who's supplying the goods needs to fulfill certain conditions. So he need to disclose what kind of items that he has imported from which country and what kind of a process that he has undertaken. Now, this has become a perennial problem for importers to avail this. Customs said it categorically very clear. If you don't comply to this, go ahead and clear it provisionally. But within 6 months, you have to get it. Now, you as lawyers have an opportunity to understand the rules of origin, read the rules of origin under every free trade agreement, find out the uniqueness, and then you can educate your importers and exporters and help them in drafting this regulation, complying to this procedures, which a custom broker cannot do it. So this is an opportunity, and there are no litigations around it. It's only denial of duty benefit. It's somebody misuse it, then probably it will evolve into litigation. Okay. So till now, we have seen the three core pillars of customs. Now we are moving to a different area. You need to recap it. Opportunities available for me. If I need to become a customs lawyer, I don't need to go and enroll myself into a course. I don't need to go and work in some companies for 5 years, 10 years. Try and reading on these three areas, practically read the case laws, work with some importers or work with some service providers. You will get to know about it a little more. There are enough books that are available. There is a book called Mr. V.S. Datte had written Customs Procedures, Guide to Customs Procedures. Is a good book that you can read. On HSN WCO website has a lot of online courses. You can enroll and everything is being taught over there. And for valuation, you can read Paul, what's his name? Sherman's. That's a Bible for valuation. If you can make a note of it, Paul Sherman. His books are available. Maybe 28,000, 30,000 for a photocopy they are charging. Maybe you can get hold of some of your friends and take a photocopy and read it. If you understand that, valuation is done. Rules of origin for each and every agreement available in the portal. You can read it along with Karotar. Till now, we have seen India opportunities on this three. If you master this three, you will have everlasting opportunities coming in to your table. You don't need to do anything. Classification, valuation, and rules of origin. Okay, now you're going to go and open another Mechanist Gold. Okay, so you all ready? This is something, a new perspective which I'm going to share, and it's going to be mind-blogging for you, all of you. Okay, what is TFA? It is a okay, trade facilitation agreement. One of the beast, I would say, I use the word called beast, the largest and the powerful agreement which WTO floated it, and India went and signed. I think 2014. There is a mistake there. Bali, I think 2014, in my view. Our existing finance minister called Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, she signed it in Bali. Now, this agreement, you all know, need to understand how WTO works. There is a Singapore agreement from 1996 has been negotiated in many rounds. There is an agreement. Every country needs to sign, then it will be ratified. So Marrakesh Agreement says if two-third members have ratified, then it comes into the date the agreement will come into force, which means if 100 members are there, 186 members are there. If two-third means 110. If 110 members ratified, which means that the day that 110th country ratifying, that day the agreement will come into force. So trade facilitation agreement came into force on the day 22nd February 2017, which that's how the agreement is in force now. How this agreement works, how it is very different. This agreement has three sections: Section 1, Section 2, Section 3. Lawyers and professionals and other participants, whether you have understood the earlier three, this you don't miss it. Here you see a lot of opportunities for you to move ahead. I'm just reducing my tempo to speak a little slowly so that you don't miss a single word which I'm dropping from you. Agreement is in force in India. This agreement has three sections. Each section 1 has 12 articles. Just to give you a perspective, how this agreement is implemented in every country. Take, for example, Article 1, publication and availability of information. Now, India needs to say on 2017, yes, our country is up to date. We don't need to do anything. All our informations are available in our portal, and every informations are available. You just go to CBIC, you see everything. Then we need to mark it as category A. If India says, no, I need some time, we have to do some work, then we can mark it as category B. Category A means the moment you put category A, it means it is in force. The moment you put category B, you have 5 years time. That 5 years time is getting expired coming year 21st February 2022, which means all the countries in the world divided into 3 buckets: developed country, developing country, least developed country. There are 3 buckets in which you can classify these countries. Developed countries, developing countries will have to classify. Most of the criteria are A for developed country. India had a few A and a few B, which we are trying to move in. This was the reason that you read in newspapers, that you see Customs is advancing in technology front. Customs is moving forward with the AI, with a lot of faceless assessment, e-Sanchit. All this sounds coming around customs is because of this agreement. If, as a practitioner, if you understand what this agreement talks about, maybe I will show you one example for you to understand. Let's see Article 3. What Article 3 reads, this is what it says. Every importer and exporter in our country can apply for advanced ruling. Everybody should be given an equal preference. Our response in 2017 was category B because we were not ready. So because in 2017, if you see the left here, this portion, the definition in our Customs Act says only JV, joint ventures and NRI can apply. We have to amend the Customs Act. Section 28E1 says, now anyone who has a valid IEC can apply, issued by DGFT can apply. So you see, before this agreement comes into force, there was a criteria who can apply for advanced ruling. Post this implementation of trade facilitation, immediately in 2017, India made an amendment in the Customs Act. Now we are ready. So with this category B will now move to category A. I hope you understood. This is how every sub-articles needs to be implemented in the country. So India is moving forward and progressing. The scores are there in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business, where they have put all the indicators and they said which country has implemented, what is the percentage, all that can be seen over there. Okay. Now, before telling you this, I wanted to also explain this to you. If you have a pen and paper, please make a note of it. I have said there are 3 buckets of countries: developed, developing, and least developed countries. Now, if any country implements trade facilitation agreement to the fullest, that means 100%, their global trade cost will be saved to the tune of 10% for developed country. You please write it down in a piece of paper. Developed country is equal to 10% global trade cost. Developing countries, you can write it down, 13.67% to 17%. Okay, now you may be asking question, what is so big deal about it? OECD projected it 1%. This statistics is from OECD. They said 1% is equal to, if you understand billion, please write it down in your notebook, $40 billion. $40 billion, which means if India implements this, we are a developing nation. So how much will be the saving? Minimum 13.67 to 17%. So let us be humble in saying 13% that we're going to save. Please write it in your book. 13 multiplied by 40 billion US dollar. That is the saving that India is going to have merely implementing these articles. Can you believe this, lawyers? You will never get this information in any schools. Okay, now your thinking process needs to think. I'm going to throw some challenges to you before now. Follow me closely. If you're not able to understand, from now on, raise your hands and ask questions, because you will never get an opportunity like this. If you don't understand, I'm repeating you, please raise your hand and get it clarified, because I want you to travel with me on the same page. I don't want you to miss a single statement that which I'm making. All right. $40 billion multiplied by 13 is India. So which means developed countries, $40 billion multiplied by 10 is their saving. So every country looked into it and they said, wow, this is a phenomenal saving. We need to get in, and they got into it and they're doing it. Now, agreement is signed. Is customs alone responsible for this? No. The cabinet secretary, who's the highest officer in the bureaucrat, cabinet secretary is chairing, as per Article 24, you have a national committee for trade facilitation. And he has revenue secretary and finance secretary as a steering committee members. And they have 4 working groups. I could have shown a slide, but still I'm just giving you an information about it. And they are meeting not only customs, even the 32 undersecretaries of respective department. For example, drug control department, food safety department, every undersecretaries are coming together. And they are saying, how do we remove all the barriers? How do we remove all the troubles, mundane process? How do we remove and make it simple? And we need to ensure that this robust TFA implemented in our country, and we achieve that global trade cost saving. And they are working towards it. That was the reason we are moving so fast. On the other hand, any article, if you don't implement, it has binding, like agriculture agreement. We have problem in that. Many of you are aware about it. Recently, 3 years back, you would have read in the news MEIS benefits or all the redemption benefits and exemption benefits that we are giving under Chapter 3 of Foreign Trade Policy, EOU schemes, EHTP schemes were all objected by US in WTO against agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures. Article 3.2BA. These two things are talking about it. And through these agreements, they went to a dispute settlement panel. In WTO, is a faster, they can resolve any disputes quickly. They constituted a DSP. 13 countries were part of the DSP, and they investigated and they ruled against India. So that was the reason we are now moving to ROTTEP. We can't extend this MEIS benefits anymore to the clients. We can't give these kind of subsidies. So now when we are moving towards that, we have an option in WTO to go and appeal. But the appellate forum is not there because of, you all read in the newspaper, Trump never approved those judges. 2 judges got retired and new judges were not recruited at that point of time. So people were thinking, is WTO is going to exist? Their existentiality, it became a question. So that's how powerful WTO. So we have a moral obligation to complete this execution. Now, I have just read one article, advanced ruling. Okay. Now, what are the opportunities that we have in India? Let's see. This slide, what I wanted to show you, this global trade cost that we are going to save 10%. I will give you one statistics which will be mind blowing for you now. I am implementing the entire agreement. I am saving 10%. Mere one article, Article 3, which is known as advanced ruling. Article 3 is advanced ruling, right? We have just seen advanced ruling. With this one article, developed country, OECD has projected, developed countries have saved 5.4%, 5.4% of global trade cost. There cannot be a better inference than this, ladies and gentlemen. By you implementing 24 articles, you will be saving 10%. 54% is being saved with the help of only one article. How does this sound? Can you believe this? Can you write it in your book? If I'm confusing you, could you please write it in your book very clearly? One article is giving you 5.4%. One article giving you a saving of 5.4%. I don't know whether you are able to comprehend what I'm saying. This 5.4%, which means 54% of this is getting saved by this one article, which means definitely it is worthwhile for you and me to take a look at that. What is in it for us as a lawyer? Okay, now take your paper pen. Please make a note of it. Don't look into all these things. The left side, I've already told you. If a country implements TFA, they will be saving 13.6% to 17%. Developed nations will save 10%. 1% is equal to US dollar. That's done. That OECD recent report, I can give you the link. You can go and read it. This alone is saving 5.4%, which means it is a matter of worth. The whole today's evening meeting, if it is worth for your lawyers, on this point, it is worth. Your whole life can be focused on this. Only on this? Yes, only on this. Okay, how does this work? Now you need to understand how this. Okay, I'm skipping a few slides to show you some statistics, and then I will be coming back here. All right. Please look at my screen now. I'm going to share with you my screen. Okay. In Europe, now I was in India. Now I'm taking you to Europe. Don't get confused looking into the screen, but see the statistics. We have now come to a conclusion. Advanced ruling under the trade facilitation agreement is going to give me opportunity. Okay, now we are determined what is advanced ruling. In Europe, it is known as binding tariff information, which we call it as BTI, binding tariff information. Valuation, we call it as BVI, binding valuation information. Origin, binding origin information. I told you customs is standing on 3 pillars. Pillar number 1, HSN, that is classification, valuation, origin. In European Union, they have created these three pillars, advanced ruling for classification, which is known as binding tariff information, BTI. For valuation, they call it as BVI. For origin, they call it as BOI, binding origin information. You can write it down and check in the website and you'll get enormous information from there. Okay, now the statistics goes like this. I'm only talking about European Union where I'm working, so I can give you the statistics. You can find out from the website for other countries as well, Australia, UK, and as well as UK now it's emerging, US and other countries. They have issued 250,000 BTI decision, which means they have issued 250,000 advanced rulings only in 2018, in 1 year, which means every customers will go and apply for advanced ruling. And they will ask that authority, please tell me, my product is this. I don't want to understand about your rules, HSN, explanatory notes, rules for interpretation, section note. We wanted to do business. We wanted to make money. We wanted to increase the balance of trade to the country. If you don't give this now, tomorrow I will be spending all my life in litigation. In Europe, the litigation cost is very high, which I don't want. I am trying to save a penny and I don't want to lose a pound. I wanted to be sure. You officer, please tell me. It's like just on the lighter note, in Mumbai or in every city in Tamil Nadu, Mumbai, everywhere, you see the traffic cops. I'm sure everybody would have experienced it. If you're sitting in front of me, you would have laughed at me. Still, you can laugh in virtual side. If only the traffic cop stands on the middle of the road, everybody will stop at the signal. He goes and stands, I won't say stand, he goes and hides behind a tree, either on the left side or the right side. We as the commuters, we may not notice in a hurry if you don't follow signals. Probably if you take a left turn, in 100 meters, he will be standing and stopping you. Now he will say all the rules. Don't you know violation is traffic rules to be followed? Don't you know this? I have kept a signboard there. How can you do all these things? And he will take a fine and he'll. Now you may ask a question. Had this cop stood on the road, middle of the road, I wouldn't venture to take a left turn. Why he needs to go and stand? That is exactly, you like it or not, Indian customs or globally, many countries are also doing the same thing because they don't want to divulge all the information to you before. They want you to do search. They want you to go to a consultant. They wanted to go, one thing they make it very clear. You cannot have, ignorance is not an excuse. That they made it very clear. If you wanted to import into India, you better know our law of the land. Where is your law of the land? It's not available. It's hidden behind the tree. So other countries develop, our country litigation cost is comparatively lower than other country litigation costs. So other countries, they said, no, we don't want to take this chance. Okay, you better play your role fair. I wanted to do this. Please tell me what is your decision. And these decisions are pronounced. It's available in public. EBID database, giving all the information, all the decisions are available, which you can read. That's where we also read and we take clue from there. And all the lawyers are doing the same thing. So if an innocent importer comes to you, better you go there and you read that and you find out what kind of a jurisprudence are available and you try to quote that. Our courts will accept to some extent. Now, 50,000 BTA decisions in an average in a year, European Union is giving. European Union consists of 29 states, except UK, now 28 states. Germany, France, UK, Netherlands, and Poland, these 5 member states, MS stands for member states, have issued 83% of advanced rulings. Only on classification. Out of that, only one country, Germany, issued 56% of the total EU BTA decisions. Imagine. This is powerful advanced ruling. Because of that, their global trade cost saved 5.4% of the projected global trade cost of 10%. Now, I hope you will understand, which means lawyers, what is the share for us in India? We got advanced ruling in our country long back, but till last year, we were reported 54 advanced ruling in our portal. There are landmark advanced rulings like BMW 2004 advanced ruling on the CKD imports, BMW 2016. There are quite a few interesting landmark, but what happened over the period of time under section 245O of Income Tax Act, we combined and we created a chairman and we did a lot of things, but nobody went for advanced ruling because it was not a sound mechanism. But now in 2017, we have a forum, Advanced Ruling Authority and Appellate Advanced Ruling Authorities are there in Delhi and Mumbai. So all the South India, that is West and South, will go to Mumbai East and North will go to Delhi, and outside India will go to Delhi. That is how the forum has been set, and you can read the new advanced ruling regulations, which is self-explanatory. It just works like a code. Now, we have learned from other country, oh, alternative dispute mechanisms are available. We never thought advanced ruling is so powerful. Now the institution is ready, the infrastructure is ready, law is ready. We are in category A. All of you lawyers needs to take cue of this. Who can appear before an advanced ruling? A lawyer can appear, a chartered accountant can appear, a custom broker can appear. Now, if that be the case, if only we think proactively with this one article 3, how much savings that we can make, how much earnings that you can make, because you know how to draft, you know how to work, you know how to present, and you know how to get the case done. So this is an amazing opportunity for everyone. Make a note of it. Article 3 and 4. So which means I will show you one more slide. This slide in the cross-border trade. In the cross-border trade, now you have to see how well. One minute. There are 3 stages. One is pre-clearance stages. In the pre-clearance stage, if I exercise Article 3, that is advanced ruling, Article 4, appellate advanced ruling, I have 2 forums to appear. If I prepare myself with the knowledge of classification, valuation, and origin, I am ready to go and represent myself before these officers. When I do this in the pre-clearance stage, our litigations will come down, our consulting will go up, and our global trade cost will directly contribute to at least 50% through this one article, which you need to emphasize. Okay, now I hope all of you took note of it. If you're serious about it, read it, and you can also reach out to me. Okay. Then at the stage of customs clearance, when you do a transaction, there are 10 steps to be completed to do a transaction. But under the SAFE framework, there is something known as SAFE, Secure and Facilitate Framework. Under article, you can write it down under Article 7.7 of TFA, under Article 7.7 of TFA, where you can apply in advance to customs something known as authorized economic operator status. It looks very simple. People may think it's like an ISO audit, but it is not. Post 9/11, US brought in a lot of changes. One of the remarkable changes in the United States is known as CTPAT, Customs and Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. That is CTPAT. When they brought in CTPAT, it worked very well. What do? They check the process of your people, your clearance or your logistics or your supply chain process, your premises, your cargo, your conveyance, everything they will check, your business partner, and they will give you a certificate that is known as authorized economic operator globally now. It is the plan introduced by WCO, incorporated in WTO, TFA also. India, what is the status? If you go to European Union, I'm just comparing for European Union, West India. If you go to European Union, and if you see in the last 13 years, we are talking about opportunities. Remember, it's not educatory session, it's an opportunity identifying session. This opportunity will tell you a developed country like European Union have 3 levels of approvals: AEO, security, AEO compliance, AEO full, which means initially you can get into compliance and later on you can go into security. And third, you need to get a full service. In India, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. First, you can apply for tier 1, which is very simple. Just give some documents, they'll give you tier 1. And you can call yourself as AEO operators. You have a lot of benefits, which I'll be talking a few from that. And when you move to tier 2, there is an inspection Directorate of International Customs teams. It's in Delhi, using their nodal office, they'll come and do an inspection. And then eventually you need to move to tier 3. Okay, take down the statistics. European Union has minimum the compliance 12,000 people, on security 1,336, because it is little stringent. So they, as of today, they have total 13,000 AEOs in the last 13 years. In India, in the last 10 years, we were very active post 2016, but still I'm giving you the statistics for you to understand. The level 1, that is the compliance level, we have 3,376 AEOs as of today. The next level, tier 2, we have 618 people only qualified for this program. And the third level, can anyone guess? It is still in 2-digit figure. 33 people, 33 importers have been qualified, which means it's an opportunity for anyone. It's related to process, but it gives you an immense control and joy for you to work with importer to understand their process and try to incorporate all the changes which was pronounced in TFA, and you can reduce cost for them, and you can speed up the turnaround time for them. So there is a consulting opportunity available. All right. So that is how the Article 7.7 helps you in during the clearance. The one which we have seen is before clearance. That means before the goods can come in, you can go to advanced ruling and get everything clear, and then you can move in. This will help you to ease out your process. And the third one, after you complete the import, you have a mechanism called post-clearance audit. Now, this is very active. How do you need to understand? Article 7.5 of the TFA talks about post-clearance audit. But I'm just going to read out a statement for you to comprehend how large this opportunity is, which you don't want to miss. Yes, post-clearance audit is, WCO says like this: it is a structured examination of business relevant commercial systems. You and me may be thinking customs will come and check classification valuation. No, it is business relevant commercial system, sales contract, financial and non-financial records, physical stocks, and other assets as a means to measure and improve compliance, which means even our Customs Act has been amended, Section 12, Chapter 12. They have added Section 99A has been included. Audit, a new chapter came in. Customs audit regulation have come out. Please lay hands on this. Today, the officers who heads this are having all India jurisdiction. You being a lawyer, you would have heard about DRI. DRI is an investigation agency who has all India jurisdiction. Even that is also after the Canon judgment, you would have read it being questioned, right? 234 and Section 6. What Supreme Court has said. Post-clearance audit officers have all India jurisdiction. So they divided India into three parts: Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai. So Mumbai, of course, it has three jurisdiction, Mumbai 1, 2, 3. An officer will have teams under them. Very structured way India has implemented. They call it as Team 1. The Team 1 has three divisions. Call it as A1, A2, A3 for our easy understanding. These three teams will focus on transaction-based audits, which means any document when they see, they will be able to pick up an objection. They will write specifically to that importer and they'll get some feedback. That's known as transaction-based audit, where you and me cannot do anything. If there is a query comes, importer will respond to it. And if he has any doubts, he may come to a lawyer or he may come to a consultant. The second category called another three circles called B1, B2, B3. You know what they do? Premises-based audit. So they go to premises to audit. Remember, audit is not only looking into the transaction information about how much duty you paid. They will also check the commercial contract. They will also check your sales, finance, non-physical records, assets, everything, which means see the opportunity in customs area that you can become a complete audit firm or an audit individual. You can go and do this mock audit and give a certification to them saying that you are fit when after you master this three pillars, correct? Plus all this other commercial transaction, you can have somebody working for you and doing it. Please understand, post-clearance audit is not an enforcement tool. It's not like DRI. It is not investigation of fraud. It is not internal audit. It is only designed to control and update RMS. Wherever there is a flaw in the systems, they would like to put that back. So the premises-based audit, the third team they created very innovatively, only in India it's available. C1, C2, C3. These three circles officers, their job is team-based audit. They're known as team-based audit. For example, recently, you may not have been knowing all these things, but those people who are connected in the industry would have seen, suddenly they picked up one judgment called GS Auto. Long back, it was 2007, I think. Pragati Silicon, there were two judgments. These two judgments were contrary to each other. One officer picked it up and they said, now automobile parts to be classified under 87 chapter. That was not the case. All of you may be knowing, if there is a rubber, we will go to rubber chapter. If there is a steel, it will go to steel chapter. If there is an engine part, it will go. So that, to cut short the story, to make you understand simple. So that judgment said that this needs to go as a part under Section 17. Note 3B, C to be seen, and it will be under Chapter 87. This officer picked it up and said, issue notice. So that created a vibe across the country. Every automobile company in the country were served a notice by PCA, team-based auditors. For what? change your classification to 87 chapter. Why? Because post GST, 87 chapter goods, that is automobiles, are considered as luxury products. So 28% IGSTs are there. So they wanted to levy the 28% IGST. There are a lot of things like diagnostics equipments and so on and so forth. So the theme-based audit focuses, I put my effort to identify one problem, and that same can be applied to across India, all the importers. So it is not one transaction, it is one intelligence. So how that it works is they spend 6 months to identify problems. All the ministry will contribute, and then they take the issues and put it before the committee of chief commissioners. The three jurisdiction commissioners will sit and they will discuss, okay, which will stand, which will not go. And when they have confidence, they'll pick it up and they'll issue notice, which means going forward, ladies and gentlemen, post-clearance audit is going to become so active and you have enormous opportunity. It is not that somebody needs to litigate. Every office in the country will be subjected to either transaction-based or premises-based or team-based. So opportunities are plenty. All right. So I told you there are three, in the cross-border trade, there are three stages: pre-clearance, advanced ruling, during the clearance, AEO, post-clearance audit. So in this three ways, you can do it. So I hope you are making note of it. And if you have any further, I'm not going to now talk about what is post-clearance audit, because that is another vast subject in which that we can speak for a long time. Okay. So we're not going to talk about it. So now we will move to the next area. How opportunities can be, how simplifications because of this has taken place. I'll show you some slides from now on for a few minutes. If you see here, European Union. Okay, so the Union Customs Code, which is currently earlier it was known as CCC, the Community of Customs Code, which had these 8 procedures, what you see in the screen. Okay, I don't want you to go in detail, but just remember 8. This 8 procedure and this 5 procedures, these 8 plus 5, 13, you see this screen, UCC reduced it to 3, which means 13 procedures and treatments, that is 8 procedure and 5 treatments, is now simplified in European Union as 3 parts. That's it: free circulation, special procedure, export. So simplification has taken place in European Union. The first one is beyond boundaries. So till now we have seen India. Now, how can we capitalize opportunities outside India? You lawyers can make a note of it and try. At least you should know, if I go there, I will get gold. Whether you're going there or not going there, it's subject to various riders. But at least you should know, if I go there, I'll get water. If I go there, I will get silver. To that extent, at least you know. So I will be able to achieve if you can understand that part. So the 3 parts, still number 2, I have already explained to you. What is BOI, BVI, BTI? FTA mapping, we saw a few minutes back. I'll also explain about that FTA mapping and tariff suspension, European Union, VAT, ADD and CVD investigation, refund and strategy consulting, and other product. Okay, accurate classification always helps. So you master about it, check the eligibility, whether they can get the exemption, whether they can get the preferential rate of duty, and what are the compliant regulatory requirements are there for each tariff item. So if you could able to do that, you can charge in dollars, you can charge in pounds. You know why I'm telling you this? In the beginning, I said, nobody in this country will feed you with this information. The noble cause plea has PLEA. I have not seen an organization consistently helping the lawyers community, bringing different people and trying to feed you. It's just a noble cause. They don't have any other greater thing. So when I am getting connected with an organization like plea, I also wanted to share what I know as the opportunity for you to take it. You use it, whether you implement it, it's different. Okay, at least you should know. All right. Now, classification, manufacturing units. Okay, what I wanted to say, post-exit, we had 29 states. In 29 states, post-Brexit, now UK, they do not have sufficient people working around customs. Every importer, exporter, they need help. So you can sit in India, and try to help them, like what I am doing. You can draft applications and send it to them, and your local lawyers in that country will be able to file it before the authority. So this is something, an opportunity. Origin information, it's again an opportunity. Valuation, which we spoke, transfer pricing, transaction value, how do you treat royalty payment, condition of sale, how do you treat license fees,
These are the opportunities, very, very vast subjects. Anyone with a little bit of finance sense can understand, and you can excel on this. And FTA mapping. How do you map FTA? Today, I told you, there are 331 FTAs are there. If in India, you take simple. In India, you go to an importer and you ask them, do you pay duty? Yes, they will say they will pay duty. How much? 10% standard. Have you thought about, any time using FTAs? No, we don't have FTAs from the exporting country. Have you checked? No, nobody told them. Who is your reliance? Whom are you relying upon? Our custom broker never suggested. Oh, my consultant never suggested. So, which means neither the customs broker nor the consultant having a complete understanding of how many FTAs that we have, how many FTAs covers their product. Why can't you advise them to change the country? For example, if they're importing it from Thailand, there is an FTA. But the same product is also available from Singapore and Korea, but it has duty advantage. Why don't you tell them to shift? Why don't you tell them to buy from there? It's an opportunity on FTA mapping. Okay, so rules of origin, Karotar is a good opportunity, which I told you in the beginning itself, which you can do. Another thing called tariff suspension in European Union. Okay, those people who are interested really, what is tariff suspension? Nothing to do with India. In India, you don't have something known as tariff suspension. I'm showing it on the screen for you to comprehend this. Article 31 of TFEU, which talks about customs duty can be temporarily suspended, either partially or totally. Okay. So the suspensions are granted for this raw materials, semi-finished goods, and components. Those goods which are not manufactured are not available within EU. So what you can do is, sitting in India, you don't need to go to EU. You sit in India, take one importer or one manufacturer, which are the products are not available in EU, which is getting exported into EU. Point number one, find out their commodities, and then identify that party and say to them, communicate to them saying that you have an opportunity to get your duty suspended temporarily. Who will say no to it? It will be a huge saving for them. Think about this line. Then you have ADD investigation opportunities. Okay, so this is another good opportunity. So when EU is imposing anti-dumping duty at the rate of 15% for a product for next 5 years, in a particular year, the exporter has reduced the dumping margin, okay, to 5%, which means you can now EU can only levy, instead of 15, 5% of the product in question. So the difference 10% would be refunded back to you. Okay, so that refund, nobody in EU, many customers are not even bothered or not even aware. So if you think what is a dumping margin, that is equal to normal value minus the export price of the goods in question. So that is dumping margin. If they are reducing it, so the difference amount can be collected as refund. So huge millions of pounds are getting, euros are getting unclaimed. So that's an opportunity for you to sit from India and to work with somebody. All right. This is another strategic consulting, which everybody are aware. Maybe you should also think. For example, if United States is imposing 12% anti-dumping duty on a particular product, example from China, the demand in US is 10 million. The production capacity is only 8 million in US. So there is an obvious deficit of 2%, 2 million. Okay. So what will they do? They'll import from China. But when they import from China 12%, which means 100% the duty is going up. So what they will do, that for the 2%, they'll see opportunities elsewhere. So that is when, if you could able to identify what are those products are suffering this impact, which you can tell your Indian customers was, let's take valve. If you see, there is a huge deficit for US on valve. So you are making valve, but you are not exporting. Why don't you increase your quality? Why don't you increase the quantity, manufacturing bandwidth, and approach and be a bridge over there? That's a strategic marketing consulting that you can do further. Okay. My dream is to create a handful of committed lawyers in this country who will think about opportunities in India and globally. At least in India, the enormous opportunities which is there. By we helping, even our country's economy will grow, and our importers will be happy, and our trade will be enjoying because the next focus is on India. People are shunning China and they're all focusing in India. We need to create in the next 1 year, 2 year, smart, excellent lawyers. And I would like to close this with one last comment or a quote, which I read from a book called The Paradigms. If you see, I had written here, excellence is that this gentleman, Joel Arthur Barker, he was a futurist. A futurist is someone who sees the market trends and he will connect the dots and he will be able to see a big picture. And he said it in 1985. Because many of you would not have born at that time. 1985, he said that in his book, excellence is at the base of success in 21st century. If you do not have the components of excellence, you don't even get to play the game. So merely be having a title of lawyers is no use. Okay, there are enough lawyers are there in this country, but you need to be excellent. So people don't understand the difference between excellence and success. So I just put in another slide without any prejudice. Just read this along with me. Success, it is briefly satisfying, but excellence is deeply satisfying. Success, hope for future goal, but excellence, present, current standard. Success based on comparison to others, that will tell you, okay, he's earning this much, so he's successful, I am not. But excellence, never. It's based on comparison to our own potential. Success, few gain it, but excellence is available to everyone. Success is externally driven. Excellence is internally motivated. Success encourages shortcuts, but excellence cultivates principles. So stand on it. If you are really doing something good, as Tom Patterson said, continue doing that good. If you are confused, get it clarified. If you need to be a person of excellence. Excellence should be your way of life. And in 21st century, if you do not possess the component of excellence, it is not your degree, it is not which institution that you studied, or it is not in which firm that you study, or it is not in which city that you live individually, that we need to develop the concept of excellence in whatever that we do. If you give 100%, and success is guaranteed and it will follow you. And I would like to thank Lee and all the sincere audience for listening to me for this session. And I have never spoken at such a long length passionately in any other session before like this. It is all on topics, but here I've just shared my heart, what I know of, and I want everyone to succeed in this country in all your endeavors. All the best to you. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you. One is, in the Indian context, as things get more streamlined, as there are more advanced rulings, will there not be a lessening of opportunities? I mean, you've given us a lot of opportunities in for UK and Europe and all that, but in Indian context, as things get streamlined, will there not, the opportunities will be reduced probably?
Opportunities will be more. How do you say opportunities will get reduced? Could you please explain? Because I see
because there will be less disagreement, less litigation.
Okay, so good question. See, there are advanced in our country. The mindset of an officer, as on today, is not going to change. Even today, even as on today, while I'm speaking in 2021, the officer mindset is still, in spite of looking into. You just take one simple example. Maybe it's all known to everybody, so I can give you this analogy. You file an appeal before Commissioner Appeals. The Commissioner Appeals knows that you have merit in that case, yes or no, but still he will pass an adverse order. Why?
Yes.
Why? The reasons are known to you. He will tell you also. Boss, I have an audit. Somebody, if they question me, I don't know what to say. You get relief from tribunal. That's why people are going to tribunal, and today it's piling up there. So litigation in this country, in spite of ADR, okay, we talk about, so when ADR comes in, Mr. Shah, once in a big forum, many people were debating. Everybody said arbitrations and mediations is going to take up litigation. Has that come down? No, it's still continuing, and in fact, it is increasing to some extent. I think it will take, in my view, a decade for us to move into that segment of advanced ruling, because that itself is an opportunity. What you get in litigation, you might as well draft, you give an opinion, you draft, and that itself is an opportunity for you. It is as equal to it. One, you are doing it later, one, you're doing it before. So pre-consultation, section 28, you have pre-consultation notice. They don't want to litigate, so the opportunity has come in. Post-clearance audit, you just pay, close it, accept. And even the department is also moving towards reducing litigation. It's a burden for them as well. Except certain mistakes are happening because of certain judgment. For example, the ITC Limited judgment, which created additional paperwork, additional procedural difficulties for trade. Now the entire country is suffering, which we cannot do anything. So such errors are also happening. Such things are also burdening the trade as well in the ease of doing business, which will continue to happen in my view. So I don't think so. Merely Article 3 and 4, like you take GST, it's a typical classic example for you and me to understand. Yeah. Today we have advanced rulings. The purpose of advanced ruling is for what? You get certainty, you get FDI investments. Okay. But today, how advanced ruling in 29 states have been misused? If you do business, I go and open up and file an advanced ruling and make sure that you don't do business. For that reason, people are doing it. And every day we get scores of advanced rulings are coming from here and there. So opportunities for lawyers are there. So advanced rulings, appellate advanced rulings will continue. I think it takes a decade and above to see some transformation happening.
So in the Indian context, this TFA is not going to make much difference in the near future.
It will, because the TFA will make a difference, because of TFA only, the government, see, usually if you take the current statistics also, if at least to my knowledge, if I have 10 clients, today everything moves in query management itself. Nothing moves in litigation. You know, in the last 10 months, I hardly had limited litigations. Rest of the things are moving in consulting, opinions, in that way itself. So neither the government nor the trade is interested in litigation, but it is taking a different way of providing value. Litigations will be there. You can't say that there won't be litigation in this country. It will be there. But by and large, to some extent, it will be, at least in customs side, I can see that there are a lot of changes are happening.
If you don't mind, one more question.
Please, sir.
This, slightly controversial question. This customs department is a little corrupt department, open knowledge. And say certain people who have to interact with them, like CHAs, they invariably, they are also caught and pulled into that mess. As advocates, are we in any way sort of away from that, or do we also get dragged into that?
No, sir. I have practiced. Since in the introduction, you would have seen that I was working in the trade. So in 2004, when I took over the position in Mumbai DHL, I never paid. So we don't say that word. The customs also don't say the word bribe, because they say speed money. They use the word called speed money. So there is a distinction which they created. We don't take bribe, so we are not corrupted. It's speed money. You come in the queue. You wanted to go to a hospital, so you want to come, so I give you priority. So for that reason, they use the word speed money. Okay. Since I'm from the trade, I've indulged in it, so I'm boldly talking about it. Okay. But I, as a company, we never paid money. The same customs, we never pay. We have the largest number of bills of interest were cleared across the country. We never indulge into it, because officers respects knowledgeable people. I will tell you very clearly, you are seeing from the other side and you're making a statement, customs is corrupt. I know scores of officers. They said, we don't want money. We don't want money. We came from a wealthy background. We love to interact with people of knowledge. We don't want money. Okay, there are few that is in this country. It's everywhere it is there. That is, but if you see, there are brilliant officers. There are amazing officers. If they only find you as a lawyer coming with loads of knowledge, they make you to sit, they talk, and they learn from you. And they say openly, our knowledge exposures are very limited because of our positions that we held, and they will create a good relationship and we can move on. So we will never be dragged into that kind of a thing. And coming to the litigation side, when I worked in Lakshmi Kumar, and we never indulge in that kind of a thing. Okay, that words will never be spoken in our thing. So not that we need to rule saying that customs is corrupt or this thing's corrupt. We can always, it's all about excellence. What value system that you hold that takes you through.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir, I am from Dehradun. want to know if there are geographical limitations to the practice in this area. Do I need to move to Mumbai or Delhi for this?
No, madam, you don't need to, because see, I'm currently I'm based out of Bombay, but I'm sitting in Chennai. But nobody knows, none of my client knows where I'm sitting in. You know, that's a blessing for us in this. You can sit anywhere in the virtual world and you can work, except when you need to appear before an officer. Even that is also now being in online. So I don't think so. Geographical restriction. You can still sit in Dehradun and you can read and you can enjoy your time and you can still do the business.
Okay. The next question is, sir, can you recommend firms for internships in this area?
Customs, since I worked and I know the culture in LKS, I would recommend they are the best people in the country as of now. So if you get an opportunity in Lakshmi Kumaran to do an internship, your life is settled. That's the best firm to work, because I've been interacting with many other people also, but that's the knowledge, plethora of knowledge, and they'll put you into a system where you like it or you don't like it, you will become a gem, you will come out like a gem. You know, that's the kind of a brilliant minds are there. So LKS for sure for customs. Next.
Okay. Next question is, what is the client base for this field?
Every importers, every exporters there are very limited opportunities are there, but now it's something is emerging. Okay, I don't know if I touch another topic, it will go more. Maybe individually to that question, I can anybody who does trading, manufacturing in this country are all your in India. They are your customers. And nowadays, 4PLs, FTWZs, and private bonded warehouse, there are a lot of other opportunities are coming in. So for this, you can start focusing with this importers and exporters. Yeah, next question, ma'am.
Okay. Sir, can you please shed some light on practicing in this? Do we need a degree in practicing?
Okay. See, there are two things. One, wherever you go, first thing what they ask is legal opinions can be given only by lawyers. Okay, legal opinions. But a consultant give an opinion. It cannot be legal, but legal opinion will stand in the courts. Even Supreme Courts can take it. Okay. So legal opinion, you need to have a law degree. Otherwise, if you have a professional degree, it is always good. I would recommend everyone, if you're a non-lawyer, please get enrolled. Law is not a big deal today in this country. Get enrolled and finish your law degree and be a lawyer. If you want to serve in this space, because there is so the way I explained you, a common man will say, I know everything. He doesn't know how to read the laws. Okay, you know what I mean, you know, reading between lines. So the principles of understanding the legal things is definitely will add an advantage, but that is not mandatory. Next.
Okay. So the next question is, sir, can you please recommend some books and courses for the same?
Okay. Okay. Books. Lay hands on WCO, World Customs Organization website. WTO begin, and there you have a lot of courses available online. You can enroll and you can get it. And in UK and Australia, they have an online course. They give you a degree, get enrolled into it. And third thing, you can, in India, if you want to understand the basic principles of classification, the best thing is buy one customs tariff RKG book. You have the rules for interpretation. Nowadays, it's available online. Go to CBEC website and you see the classification, everything. And for valuation, Mr. Mukherjee, you need to learn to see. My recommendation is the best way to increase our knowledge. Buy Excus. Excus, it's a software. Okay, Excus, EXCUS, maybe 10,000 rupees, which will have all the case laws. Install that, and valuation, anything you just put it, case laws will come. The more and more you read case laws, you will become knowledgeable. What the trade is not doing is customs broker, importers, they don't read case laws. They only see notifications and this thing. That's why their knowledge is limited. When we read case law, your knowledge will be expanding beyond your comprehension and the confidence level will become very high. So do that. That's what LKS we spend a lot of time in doing that. So even that create a study circle too. You can't read it on your own. Even if you buy some books at your home, it will be lying in your shelf for a long time and you'll only take it and refer and you won't understand. So create a group of 5-6 people as a study circle, and every day morning 7 to 8 you read it together. Customs Act, SEZ Act, finish all the barracks, and then you can move in. There is a customs procedure. There is a book called V.S. Datte, D-A-T-E-Y, Datte, advocate, senior advocate. He has written Guide to Customs Procedure. You can buy that book and you can keep it. If you're focusing on SEZ, Bhatnagar is a good, he has a good book on SEZ. On valuation in India, Dutt Majumdar, ex-chairman, he had written a book, so that you can read it. Above all, on valuation, if you want to do, Paul Sherman. That's the ultimate thing that you can read it. Yeah, that's how it goes on.
Okay.
Yeah, next.
The next question is, sir, can you derive steps one needs to take for a successful practice in this area?
The next steps, first is, as I told you, find a good knowledge partner. Suppose, for example, if you're partnering with me, so I have a study group in the morning, for example, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, different groups in the evening. So we read, because the more and more continuously that you need to read to keep yourself updated. Okay. So find some good friends reading, step one. Step two, buy books, finish Customs Act first. Before going into history and getting detracted, read Customs Act and the rules and the regulations. Okay, so Customs Act is the mother, and you have a lot of rules. Go to the CBIC website and you'll find all the rules. Pick up some rules, like valuation is a rule. Okay, and regulations, project import regulations. So there you will understand section 154, 158 talks about what Parliament gives you power to make rules and what CBIC has powers to make regulations. So read the rules and regulation, whichever interests you. That's how it should be a habit for you every day morning to spend 1 hour to read this. Step two. Step three, talk to some importers and understand what are their problems, what are they doing. Try to go and work with them. Can I be with you for 1 month? Or if you have a service provider or importer or exporter, be with them. So you'll get to know practically what are the terminologies which they use, bills of entry, shipping bill. It is all very important for you to understand these terminologies and the processes. And then fourth step, that you can start working with somebody seriously and take up some role and move on. At least a 1 year of working here and there will help you. And then you can complete your course and then you can strengthen yourself. So don't get, it's not something that only in India that we need to read this Indian authors, because it's global. If you understand classification, you can talk globally. So rely more on WCO websites. All the articles which is there are phenomenally knowledgeable. WCO articles. And if you're interested in book, I will show you WTO in the new millennium. Make a note of it. WTO in the new millennium. I think this is available in World Trade Center, Academy of Business Studies. So legal text, case laws, commentaries, everything will be there. So I'm using a 2000 version. Maybe new versions may be available, so which you can also lay hands on it. If you want to do the classification part of it, buy customs explanatory notes. Besides the tariff, you should also have a explanatory notes. The rest of the things are available. That comes in a CD as well as in a physical copy. Those two things will help you. Yeah, next.
Yeah, sir. Could you just elaborate something like the government has come up with a scheme for exporters to get rupee 56,000, 27 crore in dues under promotion schemes?
No, see, when the government wants, say there is WTO accepted every country to promote exports, they allow drawback under the agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures, which I told you. Drawback is a legitimate way to give some money back to him. What is drawback? When you export, there are a lot of duties suffered in the product on your inputs, which you used in the finished product. So those duties can be taken back as a drawback. Okay, that is known as all industry rate or a brand rate. You can apply for ad hoc drawback if you're not satisfied with the industry rate drawbacks. This is approved by WTO. What our government did is they came up with some schemes called DEPB schemes. So the schemes in the chapter can be divided into two parts: exemption schemes and redemption schemes. Exemption means once before you export, I will exempt. For example, you manufacture a shirt, garment. Garment is your finished product. So I allow you to import fabrics, buttons, collars. You manufacture and you export it. So before you do anything, I exempt you. I don't charge you duty. And you manufacture and you export, because of which I get more dollars. So balance of trade will be positive. Exemption scheme is understood. For example, advanced license is an exemption scheme. Then it was known as the DEC scheme. Now it is known as advanced license or advanced authorization. On the contrary, we have redemption scheme. Redemption is you first export, then I will give you something. That is how the DEPP scheme started. And that became later on SIFS, goods and services. Then it becomes focused market scheme, focused product scheme. So they defined a country. If you export to these countries, we'll give you this much. If you export these products, we'll give you this much as an incentive, post-export incentive, which is to the tune of 4%, 3% on the FOB value, which is a substantial gain. So we became competitive in our export market as against Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, which is unfair according to WTO. That is why America took us into the WTO. Later on, we came out with the final scheme of combining everything as MEIS. For goods, it is known as MEIS. For services, it is known as SEIS. So these schemes were disputed in WTO. So MEIS is, there are a lot of infrastructure deficiencies are there prevailing in our country. In order to mitigate it, so every time when you export, you will be getting 3% to 5% as a post-export incentive. Now government cannot continue that scheme, so that has been stopped. So they have introduced a new scheme called RODTEP. Okay, remission of duties and taxes on export products, or RODTEP. There, what they are saying, when you export, you suffer fuel. There is a tax element on the fuel. When you export, there is an electricity tax you are paying. So all this will have to be given back to you as a rebate. There cannot be a fixed amount. So MEIS, government has allotted 17,500 crores, which is spread across a certain exporters who are eligible to get that. Now government giving that same money of let's keep 20,000 crores. This money is utilized for RODTEP, which means the base is increasing. Earlier, 40 people getting 20,000 crore. Today, 100 plus people are going to get the same 20,000 crore. Okay. So which means they will not get 4%, 5%. They'll get 0.5%, 0.6% or less than 1% also. It depends on their product, which has been notified recently. That's how the schemes are working. Many people are representing back to the industry, back to the committee, saying that this is not enough. We have this data. We need to be more. The government is considering that. That's how it goes on. Sir.
Any concluding remarks from your side?
Concluding remarks. I wanted to tell all these lawyers one thing is, in my life, I had an opportunity to take a 180-degree turn when I understood what my creator wants me to do. So I was also going in the stream like anybody else. But the day that I understood, okay, this is how I can also live a life of value. So that day has changed my life. So ever since I'm strictly following the principles written in the Bible, I read that and I follow what Christ says and I implement that. So even in my physical interaction with officers, somebody said it's a corrupted department. I never had that challenge because, I could able to even convince that officer what he does is not appropriate in that way. I have a lot of friends. I won. So probably bring God into the equation in your life. It's not our skills alone. It is the favor of God which walks before you, will create opportunities for you. It is His wisdom. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So probably it's both you need to have. The wisdom from heaven is very important for every emerging lawyer because this worldly wisdom create competition, strife, and a lot of difficulties for you to strive through this world. But the heavenly wisdom is so pure and it is so decent and it is given to you by God. It is so peaceful and you can enjoy your life in spite of whatever rough situations that you have. You can bring God into equation and you can have a lovely life ahead and you will be able to understand what is your pie and you develop your skills in that area instead of, a lawyer can say always, I am masked like a corporate lawyer, say, I know every law, but I'm not specialized in any law. So rather, I would request you specialize in these areas. To give you one example for you to motivate, sometime back, Lakshmi Kumaran went to, he's the owner or managing partner of Lakshmi Kumaran Sridharan law firm. He went to US and he met with some law firms and they said, we are specializing in free trade agreements. We are expert in this country. And they took him to his office and there were 5 people. And he says, we are 5 and we are experts in this country. which means they don't know anything beyond free trade agreement. You talk to them about classification, they will not understand. That is how those people are focusing, and they know A to Z about that. So when they come to know, here is a law firm which has more than 400, 500 lawyers and they're specializing, they are not able to even comprehend. They're not able to even believe that, that's how it is. So what final concluding remarks you need to always think is, digging deeper alone is not sufficient. You should also reach further. You being a customs lawyer, you being a trade lawyer, it's not, no, I know customs, I know only trade. No, you should be knowing every law, read everything, but you specialize in something. So dig deeper, but also reach further. Thank you.